we have a president of the United States in Donald J. Trump who promised he would not touch Social Security or Medicare. So why is it, one wonders, that we are constantly having to cover the various indirect and covert ways that Donald J. Trump and members of his administration and members of his party are trying to do exactly that, or so it seems. And so I believe it would seem to our next guest, our good friend Nancy J. Altman is the president of Social Security Works, and she is the author of a number of books on the topic, including The Battle for Social Security, from FDR's Vision to Bush's Gamble. And she is the co-author of Social Security Works, Why Social Security Isn't Going Broke and How Expanding It Will Help Us All. So, Nancy, first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
So let's start with this. You wrote a piece the other day on Trump's Trojan horse attack on Social Security. And of course, a lot of us caught that one. But tell us what you meant by that.
Well, the President Trump has, or I hate to use that word, our so-called president,
right,
has, supposedly as part of tax reform, is reportedly considering something that would really be a stealth attack on Social Security. It sounds like a gift. It's the idea of getting rid of Social Security contributions, so you've got this jump in your take-home pay, but what it really does is it undermines economic security. So it appears to be a gift, but when you really look inside, it will destroy the very economic security it's claiming to provide.
Well, you're referring, I believe, to the president, and I also use the term loosely, to the president's trial balloon or proposal or whatever, it's somewhere in between, the notion of giving people a reduction in the FICA tax that goes for Social Security, that includes a Social Security payment and Medicare as well, right?
And yes, and you know, FICA, it's important to remember that it stands for it's an acronym for the Federal Insurance Contributions Act. These are not taxes, other than any time you pay the government, of course, on a mandatory basis, you can call it a tax. But it really is different from income tax and other kinds of taxes. It's an insurance contribution, or in today's parlance, a premium that is used to purchase Social Security. That is part of what makes it an earned benefit, in addition that you can only get it through work. So it is what he's proposing as part of tax, so-called, he even says tax cuts, tax reform. You know, it is part of the Republican desire to what they call starve the beast. They can't attack government frontally because it does too much, and it does too much that's important and good and that people support. And they can't frontally attack Social Security, although they've tried many, many, many times. So now they're trying in this really dishonest way to undermine its financing, and therefore as the first step to destroying it.
Yeah, you know, I think this is a really important point, a very fundamental point, and it requires a kind of, you know, an understanding of the contract, the de facto contract that a program like Social Security represents, meaning that, you know, the deal going back to the creation of Social Security, in effect, was you will pay this premium, and in return, you will receive certain benefits when you qualify for them by age or disability or whatever the qualifying event happens to be. And that's a deal. And you know, a lot of what went into, as I understand it, the creation of Social Security was, let's make this a deal so it can't be broken. And so that, as FDR put it, no damn politician can change the terms. But if you start monkeying with that, if you start saying, well, I'm going to give you a little break on your premium, but when it comes time to collect, I might say, well, you know, we changed the deal back there. You really start breaking the implicit contract, but you're doing it in a backdoor. I don't know. Does that make any sense to you, Nancy, what I'm trying to say?
That makes complete sense. like any kind of insurance, private insurance, especially something that's life insurance or disability insurance, old age annuities, which is what Social Security is. You pay in at the beginning of your working life. You may be 20, 25, 30, 15. At the beginning of your working life, you start contributing, paying your premiums. But you're not going to collect for decades. As you say, when you reach the insured event, if you reach retirement age, if you die leaving young children, if you become disabled, you have become insured and you collect on your insurance. Whenever you have that kind of long lag time, you have to have some sense of security it's going to be paid up, which is why it's dedicated revenue, it's placed in trust, very clear rules, not subject to the annual appropriations process. If you undermine, and it's why there's a trust fund and a reserve. Every insurer has a reserve. If you start monkeying around with that and say, well, okay, you don't have to pay premiums, we'll just take it out of our general revenue, then some future Congress can say, well, I've changed my mind, we've got other pressing needs, or we don't want to spend it on this. And all of a sudden, you no longer can count on that. The concept, the name itself, Social Security, says it. What you want is a sense of peace of mind, security. Now, it's been lost somewhat because of the campaign to undermine confidence in Social Security, but it actually is there. The money is there. There's a $2.8 trillion surplus. What they're now talking about, though, is raiding that, substituting much less secure funding for it, and say, yeah, take your chance. And as you say, fundamentally change the contract.
And again, we're talking with Nancy Altman, president of Social Security, where there are two glaring philosophical contradictions to me in the conservative Trumpian position on all of this. Contradiction number one is they've been screaming for years, falsely and dishonestly, that the program is running out of money. There's a long-term imbalance that can be addressed by lifting the payroll cap and so on. But the program is not going to run out of money. It will always have revenue and so on. But they've been screaming that it's running out of money, and now they're talking about lessening the amount of money going in. That, to me, is no, keep it set. And they've been claiming that it's part of the general, or pretending that it's part of the general fund for the federal government, when in fact it's prohibited by law from contributing to the deficit and so on. So on the one hand, now they're turning around and saying, well, let's give it even less money and let's slip it into the general fund so that we can start really saying, well, we can't afford it for the first time in history. Am I off base?
It's like the old joke about person who kills his parents and then pleads to the court he's an orphan. That they tried this just the other with Trump Care. Paul Ryan has been saying Medicare is going bankrupt, we can't afford it. So what do they do in Trump Care? They raid Medicare. Fortunately, that didn't get even through the House. What they're saying now is Social Security has a manageable shortfall. It doesn't add a penny to the deficit. So let's make it add to the deficit, and let's make its funding much less stable. And then we can claim we got a means test, or we got to change it in some dramatic way. Trump Care didn't get out of the House. Let's hope this doesn't even get out of the White House. Yeah,
which, by the way, gets me to the second contradiction, which is that conservatives are always lecturing the American people on the fact that they should be saving more, although so many Americans are struggling just to survive paycheck to paycheck that saving for the future is impossible. But here's a program where people have been investing, as you say, from the very beginning of their career and doing it successfully. And now they're saying, well, maybe you don't put in so much. Isn't that crazy?
That's very nicely put. But the reason is obvious, and that is that their answer is always the same: end Social Security. Right. And what they do is they find different arguments. So part of the problem with ending Social Security is people see on every paycheck that they are paying for Social Security, so they know it's an earned benefit. They know it's their money. They know they don't want Congress monkeying around with it. It's not any kind of government handout. It's earned money. So they go, well, maybe we should make it not quite so visible. Usually
Right.
they want transparency in government. Here it's like, no, let's hide the cost, and so that people don't have quite the connection with it. I mean, this was part of Franklin Roosevelt's genius, that generally, there's sort of the general thought is, oh, you want to sort of hide costs, not really know. He said, no, I want people to know what they are paying for and what they're getting for it.
Yeah, that is genius, actually. And let's pivot. You mentioned that the Trump Care plan didn't even make it out of the House. A question you don't expect, Nancy Altman. You saw the Austin Powers movies? Because I think it failed because of, they were replicating the problem that Dr. Evil had with his son Scott, where, Dr. Evil said, Scott, can't you just be a little bit evil? And, one was not evil enough for the other, that's why it failed, but it did fail. And your response, which was exactly mine. I mean, that your headline could have come straight from my heart on this one. After Trump Care failed, Democrats should respond to Trump's health care defeat by expanding Medicare. So tell me your thinking there, if you would.
Well, Medicare, like Social Security, is extremely successful and extremely popular. It was intended to be simply a first step in universal health care, Medicare for all. The Republicans, of course, didn't want any part of that, and the New Dems, starting with President Clinton with Trump Care, and then I don't know if President Obama would have called himself a New Dem, but they decided to try to entice the Republicans with a Republican idea, build on the marketplace, build on the private sector. Now, what would have been terrific is if Obama had proposed Medicare for all. My guess is the Republicans would have come back with something similar to the Affordable Care Act, but that's not how it went. Republicans didn't go for it, and now they're pushing for something weaker. Democrats want to improve the Affordable Care Act, and an easy way to do it is to lower the Medicare age to 62, when you can start getting Social Security, or even 50, which would get rid of the so-called age tax, where older people are charged more for their private health insurance than younger people. That's not true under Medicare. Everyone's charged the same. So it would be the right thing to do to lower the Medicare age. That would bring healthier people into the Medicare program and lower those costs. And it would bring the least healthy people out of the private health insurance and lower those costs. So it's a completely winning situation. It's excellent policy. It's really what Democrats should have been pushing for since 1965.
Right. And you know what else I really love about that idea? But besides the fact that, I know enough insurance financing to know that it's actuarially extremely sound thinking and is good policy, but it's also great politics because, Harry Truman did not say, it's a paraphrase, but it's a good paraphrase, that in a race between a Republican and a Republican, the Republican wins every time. The fact is that the Democrats, for too long, too many of them have been throwing around Republican light ideas. And, this is basically playing on the strengths that the Democratic Party used to have as the party of Social Security and the party of Medicare. At least the Republicans are telling a story that's simple and clear. It may be a total fabrication, but, they have a point of view. And to come back and say, no, we have created two programs for you, the American people, that work for you terrifically well, that you love, that you support, and we're going to expand those programs to make things better for everyone. That seems to me not only great policy, but that's something you can run on in a 2018 election and a 2020 election.
And it is easy to understand. Everyone knows, either receives Medicare or knows someone who's receiving Medicare. It's not a complicated idea. These Rube Goldberg machines, which is essentially what private health insurance is extremely complicated. Copays, deductibles, different formularies for drugs, all those kinds of things are so complicated. What the the Republicans are always saying the American people want choice. What they want choice on is what doctor they can see, what hospital they go to. They don't care who pays the bills as long as they get paid. And having Medicare pay your bills is so simple. Most people hang on just to reach the Medicare age. So it makes perfect sense to build on its success.